Godzilla first appeared in our lives in the mid-1950s and has been in a total of 36 different films. It holds the Guinness World Record for longest-running film franchise in history, and throughout its long career has changed significantly. The name Godzilla comes from pronouncing the Japanese word Gojira badly. Gojira is a combination of two Japanese words, gorira, which means gorilla, and Gojira, which literally means whale but refers to something big, powerful, and of the ocean. Godzilla was co-created by the Japanese special effects legend Eiji Tsuburaya, who was a pioneer of the giant monster suit. A stunt performer dressed in a Godzilla suit would perform on a miniature set built at 25:1 scale. The rubber suit was heavy and its materials weren't breathable, so the suit performer could only wear it for limited amounts of time before becoming overheated. The suit's internal cotton lining had to be dried out and replaced every day due to the amount the performer sweated. In this film, the giant monster suit evolved. Plaster casts were made of the suit performers on which a cloth base was fashioned and then covered in latex. The Godzilla suit had motors built into the head to move the eyes and open its mouth, and the batteries required to power them were concealed in the base of the tail. Hand puppets were also created for the close-up scenes, and one of them had a spray built into it for Godzilla's atomic breath. After 7 years lying dormant, Godzilla comes back to fight King Kong. The idea behind the film was basically to create more fans of the sagas. It was decided that both Godzilla and King Kong should be made to appeal to children to widen their audience, but also to pacify any political tension that could arise from an East battles West film. This resulted in the most light-hearted version of Godzilla to date, and indeed ever. A new Godzilla suit was made. His body was made bigger, as were his dorsal fins. They also removed a toe from each foot and got rid of his ears. After the 1962 film King Kong vs. Godzilla, 12 other films were produced, but these were mostly just rehashes of the same concept. That was until 1984 and the return of Godzilla. In this film, Godzilla returns to his darker, more destructive roots. Special effects artists altered the scale of their miniatures to make Godzilla seem bigger, going from 160 feet to 260 feet. A new suit was built and Godzilla got his fourth toe and his ears back. They also built a 16-foot high robotic Godzilla with a mechanical skeleton that was then covered in urethane skin. With the help of hydraulics and nearly 3,000 computer-operated parts, it could move its arms, open its mouth, tilt its head, and move its lips. This mechanical Godzilla, nicknamed Cybot, was used for close-up headshots and cost $475,000 to build. Even with the advances occurring in VFX during the 90s, it wasn't until Hollywood did a version in 1998 that Godzilla went digital. The baby Godzillas in this film were heavily dependent on animatronics, but Godzilla itself was fully CG, and Centropolis Effects, Vision Art, and Sony Imageworks were tasked with the CG work. A total of 400 VFX shots were required for the film, and 235 of them were Godzilla's CG shots. The VFX teams had to follow strict guidelines given to them by the Toho company, who were the creators and owners of Godzilla. This meant that even though Godzilla was fully CG, it still kind of resembled a man in a suit. This, coupled with the abusive use of rain to conceal things, a lack of motion blur on Godzilla when the camera moved, and a certain lack of imagination with the non-effect shots, tainted what was otherwise some pretty good VFX. Back to Japan and back to the monster's suit. 5 more films came out since 1998, and all of them were heavily reliant on practical effects, and they had relatively moderate success at the box office. Godzilla Final Wars was no different, and the director took an almost stubborn approach to the VFX, refusing to use digital effects, saying that they've been doing special effects for 50 years and were going to stay that way. After a decade in hibernation, Godzilla awoke to appear in Legendary Pictures' MonsterVerse series. MPC, double negative, Weta Digital, Cafe Effects, LiDAR VFX, Stereo D, Scanline VFX, and The Third Floor all took part in the VFX. MPC designed and created Godzilla's referencing lions, bears, Komodo dragons, and lizards to build its skeleton, muscle, and fat structure. LiDAR scans were taken to build an exact 3D map of San Francisco, and army vehicles were digitized to create CG assets. This new modernized Godzilla did well at the box office and became the second highest grossing opening weekend for a foreign film in Japan. 2 years after the success of Legendary Pictures' Godzilla, Toho, the Japanese company that created Godzilla, released SHIN Godzilla. SHIN Godzilla can mean New Godzilla or True Godzilla, was the first announced to be in production, only a few months after the success of its Hollywood counterpart. Toho decided to create their scariest version of Godzilla to date, and they used motion capture and digital effects to accomplish this. Even though the film did well at the Japanese box office, the VFX are still below par and still look like a man in a suit and have a stop-motion quality to them. The sequel to Godzilla and the third film in the MonsterVerse series didn't do so well at the box office despite MPC, Double Negative, Method Studios, All-In VFX, Rodeo Effects, and the Reynolds VFX's tremendous work reimaginating and recreating Godzilla along with 3 other Toho titans in addition to 11 other new monsters. Unfortunately, the general consensus was that the mind-blowing VFX just wasn't enough to balance the mind-numbingly boring storyline. Despite the poor response to King of the Monsters, production for the 4th film in the series continued, and Godzilla vs. Kong didn't disappoint. This was because it gave just what it promised, 2 big monsters having a big fight. Again, MPC was tasked with bringing Godzilla to life, and they created the scariest and most realistic Godzilla ever. In 67 years, Godzilla has come a long way, from an actor in a rubber suit on a miniature set to photoreal CG monster on a virtual set. And while many may say that digital effects just aren't real and practical effects are better, well, if we're honest, practical effects aren't real either. And that's the point of special effects, isn't it? To make something unreal appear real. So whether it's practical or digital, in camera or post, if the audience believes the illusion, then the VFX team have done their job. Please give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget the links to the music used in this video are in the video description, and let us know in the comments if you made it to the end of the video. Thank you very much if you did.